Okay, so yes, welcome to session number 4. I see this right here. I did it. I passed the exam. Congratulations. How do you feel?
Thank you. I feel relieved. A lot of stress has lifted, but I also feel tired of the last weeks of preparation. I need holidays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think this has been a
Yeah.
lot that's been going on. Lots of stress, needs a holiday. So, what are you doing on that front to get a holiday, to take some time?
Well, a few bullet points down. I have three celebration planned. So I did go out with friends and family on the day I passed the exam.
Hmm.
So I had Mongolian food to celebrate. I booked a massage, and I booked an way too expensive holidays in a few weeks. Yeah, from now.
Okay, great. I think that's good. By the way, how was the food?
Great. It was really great.
Okay. I
Ate way too much.
ate way too much. Well, look, good celebration. Uh, Here's what I wanted to focus on, and you might have heard me talk to Rami about this stuff, but I want for one of these things, like the expensive holiday, for example, you're going to have conversations with your girlfriend on that. There'll be times where you're eating or relaxing or something. And I want you to try to like break down a little bit more how you got to this point and not just like, hey, I did a great thing. Like what hard work led to this? What kind of stress did you go through? Does that sound like something you're okay doing?
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
it. I started doing it on the family dinner, friends dinner, but yeah, definitely something to look back on. I started journaling through the preparation, and yeah, it is quite fun to reading this back as
Yeah.
of late. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's what we do. We tend to forget maybe the struggles and the little successes along the way. And that leads to us forgetting the bigger success that happened. So it's going to be hard for you to forget that you're now in this position and you presumably got the pay raise that came with this, right? Now that you,
Not yet.
oh,
The
not yet.
process has to be passed. So basically, from now in 6 weeks from now, I should have the pay increase.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I see. I guess what I meant is more like now it's essentially secured. It might not have
yeah,
happened
yeah,
yet,
right.
but yeah,
Mhm.
there's no way for you to not get it. Yeah. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
How do you feel? Because you were worried about, will I get the best result? Did you, what were the results like that you got?
So I did not pass with flying colors, as I mentioned, but I have some development potentials. So basically, with the remark, but I got way more feedback than I thought, and there was, I think, yeah, there were some feedbacks I would like to talk to you about,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not as bad as I have thought beforehand. Yeah,
So when you say not as bad, you mean the competitiveness isn't as bad?
this too. So basically, you have to frame the story a little bit. After we have talked,
Hmm.
basically a week after, my colleague has passed the exam too, but
Yeah.
also with development potential,
Hmm.
and this makes it easier on me because I'm not the only one with development potential. So it's not as competitive, but also the feedback I got framed the development potential in a way that I think can work for me. Even without my colleagues, I would have accepted those development potentials for me. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned one colleague who got the same general results. There were two who were going to take the test though, right?
There were three. One is taking the exam in a few weeks from now, and one has failed the exam.
Oh, okay. One failed,
Yeah.
one still has to take it. Yeah. Uh, what happened to that person who failed? I'm guessing they weren't also given a leadership position ahead of time.
They were given the leadership position, so
They were.
they have basically to wait 1 year and yes, don't have the pay increase beforehand. Yeah.
I see. Um, how do they feel out of curiosity?
They seem pretty relaxed, but I don't know if I would uh, see that he's bothered by it.
Okay.
I'm not too close with him, and yeah, obviously he's bummed about it, but he's taken it lightly, as what I could have seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. The reason I ask is because you were worried about that outcome yourself. And I know what you said. You said I would probably dwell on it for an hour or a day or a couple days, and then I would get over it eventually. And so now you're seeing it play out from someone else's perspective. Granted, they don't have your same personality and they don't have the same desires. But I'm glad you got what you did. This person who's about to take the test, I hope if they say, "Hey, I passed with flying colors," that you don't take it in the wrong way. Like you are set. It's your life. Yeah. You're on track now. So how about we talk about this feedback that you were given?
Basically, let's roll back to the exam I took. So it was an assessment center of about 4 hours, and basically the examiner could only rate what I showed in the AC, and they had an basically a few points to rank me on, to give me points in, and I knew this beforehand. I knew what I will be rated in, and I was pretty convinced that I'm pretty safe in 2 of them, which were basically be interested in new things, be someone who learns new things and loves learning new things. And one is basically empower the customer, provide them vision that the customers love, and get them into in the company.
Yeah.
And both of them were points I was so convinced in that I will show my best, because I'm pretty. I think of them as my strong suits when it comes to my job, and those are the areas of my lack of skill. So my development potentials. Obviously, I took it too lightly and couldn't show what what I had to offer, because I was so focused on the other points of expertise. I wasn't so convinced of myself. So basically, that's my feedback I got.
Okay, wait. Let me back up a step. So, how many ratings were there? Like, how many categories?
So basically 6, which are the guiding principles of our company, plus the leadership point.
Okay. So 2 you were confident about, the wanting to learn new things and empowering the customer, and you're saying that those ended up still showing up in the development potentials?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So do you think that the feedback is fair that they gave you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
In retrospect, I didn't show what I could have shown in those points. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. And do you feel that, so I think there are a couple of ways that this feedback could work. One is, you and I have a conversation and I test for your, C++ ability in this conversation. You might have it and just not demonstrate it in the conversation, but you're still confident that you have it, so it doesn't matter too much. Do you feel like some of the feedback actually did identify gaps that you have even outside of that? Yeah. Okay, that's really important then, yeah.
Yeah, that's those points I brought with me. So basically, a few bullet points down. I got the feedback for speech. I think I'm pretty well suited in presenting and self-presenting myself. But I was so nervous going into this exam. I was way too fast speaking, and hence it was obvious that I was way too nervous, and they recommended me some rhetorical courses offered by our company.
Are you going to take those?
Yes, if I have a chance, yes, obviously.
Okay.
I think it's something I'm strong with, but I can improve myself in, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember before I started doing some piano recitals as an adult that I had a teacher who said it's always something along the lines of, it's always interesting to see how people give performances because nerves affect everybody differently. Some people show it, some people don't show it, but then it hurts their performance, and some people don't have any impact whatsoever. And so I look at this sort of just like what I said about the feedback, that it might be feedback you needed only for the exam or feedback you needed for your job as well. When it comes to this, you will probably experience nervousness at some point on the job, but in your general presentations, if it's largely just that nerves were what impacted you, do you think this course will still help?
Um, since my assessment center was a virtual assessment center, I guess I would love to know how to present with gestures more. Uh, I'm pretty stiff when it comes to presentations in front of people because I'm more suited and more relaxed in front of a camera. And hence, yeah, I would definitely think that those courses could help. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's good. This is I was talking to Beardage Kyle about this sort of thing too when we talked about Toastmasters, and they have what they call I think it's competent communicator, and it's a manual of something like 10 different things. And so you start with just an introduction, and that's it. Just get up there in front of an audience, and you're fine. And then they try to focus on different qualities of your speaking or presentations. Some are gestures, some are hesitations you might add in, some are vocal variety, so how much your tone shifts and how you slow and speed up. And I think it's good to at least know about. So I do think it's probably worthwhile to take these courses. You did kind of hint at something. You said if you have the chance. So I'm guessing that's more like where does the time come from?
No, it's more of prioritization. I think I have some areas I lack more in, where a course could help me more than those rhetorical courses.
I see. Yeah. There are other areas of growth, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
You may focus on. Yeah. So let's see. You mentioned speech, but what about, so what was your feedback on the wanting to learn new things and empowering the customer? Is that this next bullet point here?
No, it's well, the areas of development potential were not as grippable. There were nothing to act on. They explained to me why they had to write down that I have a development potential there, but those were basically you didn't show that you are learning new technical things. I presented in my AC that I learn about leadership and management, and I have podcasts and do mentoring sessions. But I didn't show that, except from my leadership area I'm building, I do other learning stuff. And yeah, I do this. I know I do this. I learn new technical things. That's hence I build apps, for example. And yeah, so those feedbacks didn't help as much.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So the learning new things, they split into technical and non-technical, it sounds like. And they were convinced on the non-technical part at least?
They were convinced I'm learning leadership and management skills, but they weren't convinced I do more than learning those new skills I have to learn for my new role.
Yeah, I see. And the way that you did end up communicating, I have written apps, I've released apps, and they just thought, okay, that's not enough. They didn't say, here's what we would have expected?
No, I don't think they expected much. So I think they were looking for something else and not something technical. Some stories that I have learned in past. I think they would have loved that I have presented more on this subject, and I used my time to present the other guiding principles I was not so convinced about.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason I ask about this is because you have thought that some of their other feedback has been good. And so if they had said, hey, this, we're not convinced that you're learning as much as you could technically, for one, you've mentioned wanting to eventually be CTO. Two, you have mentioned wanting to keep your technical skills sharp on the path to CTO. And so three, if they say then that, oh, we're not convinced on this front, maybe there is some other signal there that I'm not necessarily getting and that they'd have a recommendation. Now, let's just, out of curiosity, if we said, yes, this is worth following up on, could you ask them, or is it not a possibility anymore to say?
I could have asked, or I could ask them in the future. I have their company mails, and I
Yeah.
can write them. But so they don't know I plan to become CTO,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't be in the process of me becoming CTO. They aren't in the process of, and yeah, I don't think it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it is either, because if you're confident enough in your technical abilities and we're far enough away from the path to CTO, then I think there will be enough times to course correct. The other thing too is, since you just got this new position, give it another year or two, your plans might change completely. You might say, now that I've done this, I want to do a different thing. And I'm not even saying a worse or a better thing, just different. That's all. So yeah. Okay. I think that's good. And so then empowering the customer, did you get any feedback on that? Like you said, maybe it wasn't actionable.
Um, Basically, they hinted at me having not as much experience as some other colleagues or yeah, leaders that are taking this assessment center. But experience is something which is basically hard to get and hard to provide. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I don't see that as a problem really, especially because you're now in this role and every day on the job is another day of experience that you'll get.
Yeah.
So I think that'll probably work itself out too. Then you said there were 6 dimensions of feedback. We talked about 2 of them and then also speech. So is there anything else that they gave you that you want to work on or that you think is good?
There were 2 things they mentioned. One is the balanced employee and company. Basically, the assessment center was situations I would have come into contact with as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, a criticism talk, a meeting with my with a direct report, and on the other hand, I had to lead a team meeting and basically moderate a heated situation. And both of those were settings where I was pretty focused on the employee.
Yeah.
And they would have loved for me to balance employee versus customer more. I was always on the side of the employee. I always asked if the feedback I got in written from my customer is the situation, like how the employee thought of this situation.
Yeah.
And basically, they hinted at that a leader should also be capable of being the hard leader and focus on the customer from time to time. And that's a valid point for me. I'm pretty employee focused, and I know I would tend to focus on the employee when I'm asked to. Yeah.
I find that when you're entering a role or when you're hypothetically entering a role, so in the case of this examination, that you have your own instincts that haven't been hardened by experience. And so wanting to focus on the employee is a valid way of starting out. And then, yes, you probably learn on the job when that works and when that doesn't work. And the experience is what lets you figure out which path to go down. So I think this is something to be wary of. I don't think it's necessarily a problem right now. I do want to know, do you see examples of other leadership in your company prioritizing customers over employees?
Yes. Into the extreme, where some leaders focus on the customers solely and tend to ignore the employees, the direct reports.
Yeah. Do you see a healthy mix that's still skewed more toward customer than you would do?
Yeah, I guess. But as you mentioned, they tend to know when to focus on the customer. Yeah.
Okay. So just like how I said, I think in session 1 or 2, I think it's pay attention to those people who are doing the healthy mix and see where they're making decisions differently from you, because that can serve as a guide. You have your own actions that then can lead to success or failure, let's say. And the failures you really learn from, but you had a failure to get there. And so when you look at other people who have successes without the failure and you think, I wouldn't have done that. That's something I should internalize. So yeah, if you can pay attention to that, I think that would be good. And then also, in these situations that they posed to you, was there a clear, like, okay, the customer is right in this case and I should side with them? Or could it have been argued either way?
The latter one. Obviously the employee presented his side of the argument as the convincing one, and since the customer was in the room, I tend to believe the employee that sits directly in front of me.
Okay, good to know. And yeah, do keep an eye on this. Let me just write this here. Keep an eye on people who have a healthy mix. Okay, so I think we've talked a lot about the feedback here. It sounds like you've taken into account what you can improve and you want to improve that stuff, and then you'll keep an eye on these other things that are a little bit harder to act on just yet. So you said a lot of stress has been lifted. What stress remains?
The stress of the new role, the expectations the employee set. I have seen you have written down how the first meetings with my direct reports went. They went great. I ask every direct report what they expect from me, and hence I have yet a written list of 21 different expectations from myself. And that's a different kind of stress, but that's a stress I can work with. It's not too stressful, and I cover. I work on this every day and try to find a healthy mix of my day-to-day work. Yeah.
Of the 21, how many of them are they're just opinions? How many are things where you say, yes, I want to prioritize those? What kind of feedback did you end up getting?
So it was a broad mix. The most expectations are open to feedback and transparent communication. Let's call it basic stuff, which is important, which is really important for myself too. But I think of it as a necessity. I don't think it's a problem to fulfill for myself. There were some employees which on the getting to know each other meeting, they focus on the pay increase they wanted to get. So as a first meeting, which is a rough start, let's call it, simply because I'm not yet in the position to do so, to have a pay increase for them. But that's an expectation which is fair in some cases, obviously, but that's nothing I directly can work on because I have some guidance, some guidelines I have to follow, and
Okay, so I want to approach that in a second. You said there are some basic expectations that they have. There are some that are on the pay side of things. Were there any where it surprised you and you thought, okay, this is something I need to go look at?
There were some employees that wanted a completely different role. So basically, our company has a big restructuring from about 5 years ago, and those employees are still at the company and want the old roles back, the old setting, which is basically unprovidable. But now I'm at the position where I'm the one responsible for their fulfillment, let's say. And that's something I really want to work on.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting on a couple of fronts. So let's go back to the money part of things. For one, I think it's good that these people are sharing these expectations, even if you can't do anything, and even if it might give you the wrong impression at first almost, because to me, it indicates that they are unhappy enough to have vocalized this. And possibly this could be the difference between America and other cultures. Directness, I don't know, like, how does it work over there? But if people at all are like, oh, hey, I don't really want to ask this or something, and then they built up the courage to, that could even show more that this is an important thing versus if you are in a very direct culture and they're just like, give me more pay, I need this, here's why I deserve it, then maybe it means a little bit less. But either way, it indicates that they felt there was a need to bring that up in the first meeting with you. Is this something that, like, where do you see as the results of that moving forward? I know you said you're not in a position yet to grant that.
So there are official processes, which is basically there are 2 times a year the all leadership in the company collects all pay increase wishes from the employees and creates a big spread list, and the CEO goes through it and grants them or dismisses them.
I see. Okay. So essentially you have to wait for one of those 2 times in the year, and then you would direct these people. So, and you plan on, I'm guessing, following up with these people and saying, look, here's the process. Like, okay, great. Yeah. I think that's good. And I think that's all you really can do, especially in a company with established pay raise processes. So on the other front, you mentioned there are people who want different roles. I think this is also important. Again, they're choosing in their first meeting to talk to you about this. And what I take from this is, you said 19 or 20 direct reports. If all of them have incredibly big requests that are like, hey, I want to change the entire structure of my job, that time needs to come from somewhere. You'll need to dedicate that time. And these people that you met with are, I'm guessing, somewhere between 15 and 25% of your direct reports. So you still have another 15 people to meet with or something. So how does that make you feel, knowing that there are these things you'll need to follow up with?
So time management isn't the strong suit I developed yet, because I'm still struggling to find the time to basically lead the other project, the long-term project, and prioritize the employees I got now. So it's a lot more time commitment than I have thought initially, but it's something I can provide. But I have to work on this. So I have to find the time and basically set focus times in my calendar, because otherwise my calendar is filled to the brim, and I can't work for my employees, for my direct reports.
Yeah, well, so it's funny because I think this is the most common theme now of everything that you've shared, which is you have a lot of interests or a lot of demands, and you don't have the time for all of those. It's not like, hey, Adam, I have a 6-hour pocket of time. How do I bring myself to do this? It's how do I make the 6-hour pocket of time so that I can do this? And the problem with this is that it's nice to have these demands and desires, and yet it's what you said earlier about that rhetorical course, which is, yeah, how do you prioritize that over the other pieces of feedback? When do you carve out the time? And so signs are pointing to me that this long-term project that you've wanted to oversee, that you need someone else to manage, that you potentially need to hire someone for, how much of your time is that taking up now?
This week, about 25%.
Okay. And you should probably tell me about the plan for that. How did that meeting with the CEOs go?
Yeah, so the CEO didn't come prepared.
As you thought, yeah.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't the outcome I would have liked, but it's something we can work on. I was looking for some prioritizations with the new topics for the project, and this meeting is basically scheduled for now in 2 weeks, which was postponed because there were struggles to find the vision, the roadmap for the overall project, which is basically a requirement before prioritizing the components I'm working on. And so it's postponed, but we came up with a roadmap, which is at least a starting point for the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. This this represents quite a lot because, for one, I know this project is near to you. 2 is that 25% of your time in this last week, if you're working a normal work week is about 10 hours, that's a significant chunk of time that you could spend doing almost anything else, right? And who knows if 2 weeks from now they say, okay, now we can prioritize these things, but we don't have the people to do it yet. And now does your time get spent hiring those people to, so this is something I would definitely keep an eye on because you're in this new role. And I think what is familiar to you and what you want to do is part of the old role to some extent. And there's got to be some way to transition that into this new world. Do you want to do that? Is there any, like, is it kind of just you're bummed that the CEOs are holding up the process? How?
No, it's the process, which is quite unique, I think, from my position, where I'm both the product owner and now chapter lead. Is I'm now responsible for recruiting people,
Yeah.
and I have budget to do so. So I have scheduled a lot of recruiting meetings for the next upcoming weeks. In hope to find someone that is helping me replace myself and getting me into the, let's say, management of management skills, so Scrum of Scrum or something like this for this project. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's great. How do you feel about the recruiting process? Do you feel confident in your abilities to do it? Like, yeah.
So last week I had my first recruiting meeting, and my new manager took the lead in this recruitment process, which was quite eye-opening for me because I could see the resemblance for my own recruiting process with the same manager.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of similarities. And I have colleagues that are invited to support me in my first recruiting steps, let's say.
What are they invited for? Like, what are they doing?
Into the meetings. So they are leading the first meetings, and I will transition into leading those meetings myself with them at my side, so they could take over. And afterwards, obviously, the next few steps are I'm leading those without them.
I see. And what are these steps? Is it that there's a candidate in the room or virtually there, and it's actually an interview, or is it also trainings?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Okay. Yeah. I think this is big. I think you're going to learn a lot in the next like 6 or 12 months. There's no other way to put it. And a lot of times it might feel like it's overwhelming to some extent. And it sounds like you have a good enough network of people helping you and people who believe in you and want you to be there. And so I think you're set up for success. I think the things to watch out for are things like, how do I learn from other leaders on this job doing things that I want to be doing? How do I incorporate this feedback that I've gotten both from the exam center and from my employees? And then how do I make sure that the employees are happy moving forward, especially when some of them approached you with pretty big problems? By the way, how many did you talk to so far? How many direct reports?
All of them. 21.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind.
The last meeting was this week, yeah.
Okay. All right. I had thought that you'd only talk to a fraction of them. Okay. So then I ignore what I had said earlier about the whole, you might be getting, I'm going to just delete this section. Never mind. It was more worrisome to me when I thought you talked to like 3 and they brought up these really big things already. And I was like, wow, that's only the first 3. You're really in for it then. Okay. So still managing all these expectations, I think is going to be a lot. And then while you're learning at the same time. So I don't want to put pressure on you here, but if you make a recruiting mistake, let's say, and you hire someone who can't take on the project, that's much more costly than, making a poor roadmap for your project for the next month. So, are you still feeling excited about all this despite the stress of just the?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel excited. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so much new stuff, and I have gained a lot of insights into the processes behind the scenes, and I really enjoy the new look into the company and the processes behind. Yeah.
Okay. And does it reframe how you feel about eventually being a CTO? I know it's very early on.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've seen how technical decisions are made behind the scenes, and I think a CTO is really necessary there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, and that they're necessary and that you can find the right person is one thing, and then being that person, I think, is the other thing. So
Mhm.
if this hasn't changed your mind at all, I think that's still fine, and we'll talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, anyway, yeah, like I said, you got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
So, and I think the holiday is a really good idea too. And that'll be one of the times I think, I hear this from other managers when they first become managers, which is how do I even take vacation? How do I step away from all of this? Who's going to handle it in the meantime? That'll be your first test of doing this. Do you have a plan for that?
I have already scheduled my holidays, and my colleagues know about it, but it was quite a hard process. So all new employees, all new managers are invited to an on-site event,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the first one where all leaders of my business unit come together, and yeah, it was prioritizing my holidays against this on-site meeting. But I talked to some of the more senior leaders, which are more experienced, and they told me that I should prioritize my holiday, even though they can totally understand if I wouldn't.
So let me get this straight. There is an on-site event that you'll miss as a result of taking your holiday. Um, Let me ask you this: which would you rather miss in the future, like the on-site event or regular work?
Excuse me, the I'm choosing between regular work and the on-site event.
Yeah. And so for this time, you said, I'm not going to go to the on-site event. Is it something that you feel like I want to do that decision every time? Could you somehow schedule your
I I
holidays that way?
I chose between holidays and on this on-site event, and I chose to go on in the holiday, and I would make the same choice in the future if the same scenario came up. Yeah,
I see. Okay. I think what I'm trying to ask is more along the lines of this on-site event happens how often?
basically every few months.
Okay. Okay. So it's common enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind then. I think that's fine. Okay. Wow. Well, yeah. So how about we move on to some of this other stuff? Do you feel like, you've got a plan, feeling confident enough in what you're doing at work?
I do.
Yeah.
I think I'm. You mentioned I'm set up for success. I'm well connected, but I have a point written down for more networking. But basically, I think I'm in a position where I can fulfill the expectations that are held up. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's important because whether or not you can is something you'll find out with time, but how you feel about whether you can do that is something that will always be up to how you feel about it, your mentality, I guess. So it's good that you're feeling confident about it. I see this here. The how do I connect with new people and network with them? Where is this coming from? Why do you want to network with people?
So one of the questions I was asked in my leadership interview in my assessment center was, "How are you networking with other people in our company?" I mentioned I'm working in a pretty big, yeah, international company, and they are always looking for someone that is connecting multiple areas in the company, so you are well suited and well networked. And I think I'm at a starting point. I'm not too. I'm pretty new into this company. I'm not yet in a position where I would say I have a big network of people I know.
Yeah.
And I would love to build this, but I'm struggling to. I don't know where to start finding connections, and um, the harder part for me is staying in touch with them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk about this in just a sec. Let me see, because something came up while you were saying this. Okay, so the assessment center people said, how are you going to connect to these different groups of the company?
They were asking if I'm connected and what I do with my connections.
Right. Okay, so those were the assessment center people, though. How does your leadership feel about this?
Depends on who you're asking. If we ask my direct manager, they would say networking is important, but not too high up the ladder. If you ask my CEO, he's pretty well networked within our company. Obviously, he goes to the big events, has to present our company, and is pretty good at networking. But the more you go down the ladder, the less importance is for networking.
Yeah. So I think that essentially sums up my thoughts on this. A while ago, you asked me, hey, how do I get better at marketing? And I said, I don't think you should get better at marketing. And I'm going to say something similar here, which is that you are in a new role. There's no expectation from your leadership that this would happen. And I think here's the really important part. When I would interview people, I would interview them to try to figure out what level they are, because there's a job posting and maybe you say you're whatever, just to make up a number, level 50. And I'm checking to see, are they really level 55 or are they really level 45 or something? The way you test this is by asking questions like this. How well networked are you? And if you were a CEO, you would say, well, I know all of these techniques. I'm talking to different companies. I'm talking to different functions within these companies. And they would say, oh, wow, that's a good signal. And they'd rate you higher. And I think that's why they're asking about this, not like it's a necessity of the job. And you have much more pressing issues that are staring you right in the face. So yeah, how do you manage your time? How do you make sure your employees are happy? With that said, I can still talk to you about some networking techniques, but I don't think you should focus on them. So unfortunately, your holiday is scheduled over one of the best ways of doing this, which is an on-site company hosted event. But go on. Yeah.
So the on-site event is basically from. I told to you about this. I am 2 levels down from my big parent company. So there's the parent company, then there's a middle layer, and then there's us at the smallest company level with about 300 employees. And the on-site event is from those 300 employees and not from the parent company. And they were asking if my parent company if I'm connected into the other companies which are outside those 300 employees.
I see what you're saying. The way I look at this is that it's a social graph. And so any two people being connected here, then there's a connection here and here and here. And so then you're essentially connected through all of that, or you could at least move across that graph more easily. So I think there was sort of an implicit thing you're saying, which is that this isn't the bigger company, which was what the assessment center wanted. And yet it's still valuable because you probably don't know all 300 employees. If you do, like you said, how do you stay in touch with them? So I think form bonds with the people that will be most readily helpful to you, and then work your way outward from there. So, okay, this is one way of doing things, but I think the general thing I'm trying to say is that company events are hosted things that they expect to have people talking to each other, building some bond in that time. And then usually they give you, food and fun stuff or whatever else, some, activities. So it's like a, hey, just take this and go kind of thing, instead of go carve out your own event, go to a convention where you hope to meet some of these people or something. So I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it. And since I'm saying not to focus on this too much right now, I would say just, next big company event you see that you're allowed to go to, maybe consider going. And that's what I'd probably leave this at for now. If that didn't work, I think we should just talk about it then. When it comes to staying in touch with people, I think this is somewhat tough because it all depends on what relationship you have with that person and what you want out of that relationship. So sometimes, I've seen, maybe this is bad to say, but I've seen people who suck up to upper management, and the relationship they want is, I want to look good in this person's eyes so that if there's a promotion or something, I might get it. Whereas a lot of times it could be you are on team A and you want to have a relationship with team B because their product or feature could help you in your part of the company. So depending on that relationship, how you stay in touch might be different. There might be something like hey, how can we support your team, or how can we help you through whatever difficulties you have so that then you can help us, versus just, hey, how's it going kind of thing, where it's so I think some of this will be tentative until you need it. And yeah,
I guess why this was interesting to me, and stayed in mind as the sole question from this whole interview was I guess I'm not good in it, even in my personal life. So staying in touch with my friends is something that is quite hard for me, and I haven't figured out a way to make it a habit to reaching out or staying in touch. And maybe I was connecting private and company stuff with each other, but that's, I think the networking part is something I want to work on for my private life as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something we can talk about. I think let's start with the people you want to stay in touch with but aren't staying in touch with. We're just talking like friends here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so not necessarily family or yeah. Okay, good. So so these friends, are they in the same area as you and you could meet up in person? I'm trying to get a better grasp of the kind of people we're talking about.
So basically, I would say 3 bigger friend groups, and one of those I have a regular scheduled game days where we meet for playing games. We play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's easy to stay in touch because we have something we schedule in advance to come together. And those other friend groups, I don't have this, and if I'm pretty bad at remembering to talk to them. It's something out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, and it's obviously if I remember, I write them. We meet, but I tend to forget to ask them and meet, and yeah.
Okay, well, so I think there are a few things here. The first I'll start with is you read about 3/4 of Atomic Habits. I don't know if you took notes or anything, but if you were to read over or skim it or look at your notes from the lens of how do I get this to help with my friends, I think that would shed some light on a lot of this. You know, you're supposed to make something as easy as possible to do and as rewarding as possible once you do it. And so the easiest possible part with Dungeons and Dragons, you've scheduled this every so often. It's easy. You just go, you do it. The event is planned. You know what to expect. Everything is there. It's rewarding because you have fun and you socialize with your friends. With these other people, there isn't something that's making it easy right now. And like you said, you can forget. And so the first step would be to just not forget, which could be a calendar reminder saying text, roll dice and figure out who you text, but like text a person from your friend group and they're cool. Now you at least have a reminder that's putting it back in your face of like, let's meet up with this person. Beyond that, it would be, having an activity or having something that you can do. And I think your schedule is pretty full as it is. So it's probably hard to add in something at regular intervals. And that's where I would say at least just start with just a calendar reminder of text or call this person. And I do this with certain family members and certain friends that I have. It's like a semi-random occurrence. Maybe I'll have it on a like 5.4 week recurrence where it's like in your head, that's not the same time every month. And then when it rolls around, you're like, oh, I do have to call that person. So that helps for me. But at some point you've got to think, how many people can I stay in touch with and not, sacrifice something else? And how many people do I want to stay in touch with? And so what is that balance for you? Like, do you want to be in touch with all 3 friend groups and be doing something all the time? Because you could do that, right? And then what do you give up to do that?
I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
I think I have to think about this. I don't think it is necessary for me to have regular meetings scheduled, events scheduled with my friends, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, this is, I don't know how this will sound exactly, but at some point you kind of take inventory of the people you're talking to in your life, because we live in a time where you don't have to ever say, sorry, I'm moving away. We just can't talk to each other, hang out. We can now always text and call, and we can always play a video game together online or something like that. So there's no way to stop you from being able to do an activity with somebody. And as a result, every person you meet is adding to this sort of pile of people that you could just keep talking to the rest of your life, right? And yet we don't just talk to 2,000 people every single week. So you are making a choice somehow to sort of cut people out of that loop or lower their frequency or something. Yeah, at some point, I think there are people where it's like, I call them once a year on their birthday, and like, that's the relationship we'll have. And if I were to drop that, maybe we'd never talk to each other again. And like, I don't know. So at some point, I guess it's like, that's life. And like, how much do you want to network with these people? And the techniques you use for networking with these personal contacts will extend to networking with people at work. You'll have made it easier. You'll have reminders or something. You'll set up an event sometimes, and you'll participate in events sometimes. So yeah, I think maybe start with just like, who are the two most important people of these other two friend groups, and just focus on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll write this down
I think
too.
that's good. Yeah.
And focus on them. Yeah. Okay. So what do you want to talk about from the remaining things that we have here?
Yeah, I think those go fast. Go both pretty fast. So basically, I'm back into the sports streak I plan on.
Nice.
I did pause it for my AC after studying a whole bunch. I wanted to to binge watch some Netflix, and yeah, the couch was more rewarding at the time than sport. And yeah, I was looking forward to starting the streak again, and yeah, that's what I've been doing the last week. Yeah.
Did you go climbing?
Yeah, I did, and I had I don't know what you call it in English. If you have tender muscles afterwards.
Yeah, just soreness, I guess. Yeah.
Soreness, yeah, right. After climbing for 2 days.
I look at it almost like I did the thing correctly if I'm sore afterward, because pain is bad, but if you're just sore, it's like, well, I worked out muscles I didn't work out before. How do you feel about having to break the streak? Because I think that's the part I'm most concerned with for you.
It was nothing I've decided actively. It was something I basically hadn't. I hadn't the energy to do it, and it was nothing that was bothering me because my mind was so focused on the exam. Yeah, obviously, in retrospect, it would have been nice to keep going the streak and see the climbing number, but it's nothing that is bothering me too much.
Okay, good. Out of curiosity, did you watch the video I made on Tuesday, the one little step thing on YouTube?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yeah.
So the most important thing, and for anyone watching this, it was just, pursue some things in your life, but the important part was don't feel guilt about if you can't do it. I don't find guilt to be a good motivator. I think it can motivate in some rare cases, and then it's probably not even a healthy motivator. So I think streaks typically get to the point where it's skirting the line between guilt and like proper motivation. So anyway, as long as you don't feel anything bad about that, I think that's great. You've gone out for a run, you've gone climbing. How do you feel now? Because in your first session, you said, I've been doing martial arts for a really long time. I want to get back into something. Do you feel like you've succeeded?
No, because I want to do something that is in a group and not by myself. But I think I'm on the right track to do so. So climbing was I wasn't climbing by myself. I had some friends with me, and I want to basically increase the amount of time I do some kind of sports with my friends.
Okay. And did you run on your own, or were you running with people?
I was running my own. Yeah.
Okay. So this is how do you tackle two things on this list at once? You mentioned you wanted to be in touch with these other two friend groups. Are any of them active?
Yeah. The one is so active. I am quite nervous to ask them if we can do some sports together. But yeah, they are pretty active.
Well, climbing is not something where you need to be at the same level as somebody else. Running can be, because you run at two different speeds and then you're not running together anymore. But that could be an idea that you do too. You reach out to the people, like I said, that you think are the most important, and you say, hey, I want to get back into sports. Let's go running together, or let's go climbing together. So I think it's good. I guess, when I asked, do you feel like this was a success? And you said, no, I thought, uh-oh. And then you said, because I'm not going with a group.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's fine. But I think part of this is identifying, like, you, at the time, I don't think we're doing much toward activities, sports. Yeah. And now you are. And so hopefully, at least from that point of view, you recognize, like, I made this change, and you made it in, however long it's been since the first session. What was it? Let's see.
2 months ago.
December 21st. Yeah. So since then, you've already made strides toward this. And I think that's great. So, and I think this also reinforces the point of, you can only do so much. So you prioritize certain things, you wrote them down in this document, and now you're going and focusing on those. So yeah, try not to add so many things that you can't focus on everything. I think that's the difficulty here. By the way, what did you watch on Netflix?
I have to add it to this list. It was some anime I found. I don't know the name.
That's fine. Yeah, I was just curious. Okay, yeah. So let's see. We got a little bit of time left. How about we cover the app thing really fast?
Yeah. So I also did break my coding streak. I was planning on coding at least 1 minute each day to make it easier for myself. And I'm back to coding for at least for this week. But I think I want to decrease my goal of coding each day to at least coding 3 to 4 days a week. Simply because the amount of things I learn on the job are so heavy on my mind that coding is quite hard to focus on.
Yeah, look, this is the whole no guilt thing. It's okay to put a goal aside for some amount of time, and not out of necessity, even just out of like decision to say, I just rather focus on this for now. And I myself have been doing this quite a lot. I started streaming and I was making a bot, and then I was making whatever. I've been almost entirely on game development now. And in my head, I keep thinking, but I left this unfinished and I left this unfinished. And yet it's like, I want to work on this. So I'm just going to work on this for now. So if you drop the daily coding down to 2 times a week, and you still say, you know what, this isn't working for me, I'm not seeing the progress I want to do, it might be better to just say, I'm going to wait until I have the time to focus on this. And and also ask yourself, what are the main goals out of this? Is it to improve your coding? Is it to get an app out there people love? Could you focus on the app you've released already and get more people who... So really think about how you're pulling yourself in so many directions, I guess. Okay. But sorry.
Yeah, to the point which you have asked, you have written down the question, if I found fans for my app, the goal to find someone who loves the app is for the new app I'm currently developing. That's the goal. For my old app, I basically set it aside. I have currently no users, but it was a journey and quite a fun one, but that's not my concern currently. Yeah.
I see. Okay. And again, totally fine. And I think, there's probably this desire to push everything to the maximum. Like each app I release, I want users, I want money, and then everything then becomes like your job right now, where you're in this 6 months period of I'm transitioning, I'm learning something new, and you never get a chance to just kind of settle and use the skills you've learned and kind of feel good about that. So, how are you feeling kind of in general? Still
tired and stressed, but I'm looking forward to the holidays, to the massage in 2 weeks, and I'm pretty I'm pretty excited. I got the exam a few months ago. It was such a big goal, and I did it, and I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I am happy too. I hope the holiday is great. I hope you get a time to decompress. And I really do hope you end up talking to your girlfriend about, like, how did you get there? Breaking down the whole, what went into this? How can you give yourself credit for this? What were the struggles that you faced that you thought were insurmountable when you first approached them that clearly you got through because you passed the exam? So yeah, I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Thank you, Peter, for the session. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And yeah, have a good rest of your day. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.